Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to today's Scrum Pulse webinar. I'm Lindsay Vellicino with Scrum.org. I will be your moderator today, and today I have two professional Scrum trainers with us, Tony Lee and Ravi Verma, and we are here to talk about how to respond when there is resistance to agile ways of working, a challenge many of us face. So let's move on to the next slide. Some very quick guidelines here. So you'll notice that your microphone is muted. However, we highly encourage you to ask questions. There will also be a couple polls throughout this session, so please pay attention to those and participate, and some other opportunities to participate as well. So please do. And then this session will be recorded, and the recording and slides will be available within 24 hours. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox. And once again, please ask any questions that you have as well. Next slide. Okay, so who is Scrum.org? So very quickly, we are the home of Scrum. We were founded by Ken Schwaber back in 2009. Our mission is to help people and teams solve complex problems, and we do so through our professional Scrum training, ongoing learning opportunities like this webinar, and our certifications. We always encourage you to continue your learning, and this is one of the many free ways that Scrum.org offers this, so please check out all the free resources on our website as well. And with that, I will hand it over to Ravi and Tony to introduce themselves and kick us off.
Thank you, Lindsay. Tony, would you like to go first, please?
Okay, thank you, Ravi. So hi, everyone. My name is Tony Lee. And a little bit about myself is my background. I'm in software engineering. I did SDET, software development. I did then enter into entrepreneurship, did startups. Then I become the team lead. I become the manager around departments. Then I start getting into how to communicating with people, with human being, the trainer, consultant area. So my industries are related to telecom, wireless, unified communication, online collaboration, social medias, and localization. Below is some classes I teach, certifications. That's about me. And Rafi, pass on to you.
Thank you, Tony. My background is very similar to Tony. Started off as a software developer, then got into technical manager roles, and then became an entrepreneur and a Scrum trainer, and I help companies with adoption of professional Scrum. My industry experience is pretty diverse: fintech, travel, healthcare, media, networking, telecom. I've helped companies ranging from 10 people to 10,000 people and everything in between. I'm a professional Scrum trainer like Tony. I'm also a certified professional coactive coach, a certified ROI professional. I use ROI-based techniques into my training, coaching, and consulting. And I'm also a certified trainer from Sharon Bowman's Training from the Back of the Room approach. Bachelor's in computer science and engineering, master's in entrepreneurship. So that's a little bit about my background. The reason Tony and I wanted to share our background is we wanted you to know that no matter what context you may be in, it's possible that Tony and I have been in a similar context, and we will be drawing upon our lived experience. So we are not a bunch of academics who spent our whole life just training. We come from the industry, we work in the industry, so we know your world. All right, so let's start with our acceptance criteria for this conversation. You told us your acceptance criteria. You told us your agenda in the coaching jargon, or in plain English, your intent. What did you want from this session? So in the registration Lindsay set up, we asked many of you the question. You had the choice to tell us what's one example of resistance you're facing that you'd like to get some help with in this webinar. And last we checked, we got at least 400 responses. So what Tony and I have done is we have gone through your responses and we've tried to integrate and address as many of them as possible within this webinar, with the caveat that, each one of you, we can't address all of your responses in a 40-minute webinar, okay? But we were informed by your requests. What is the intent or agenda that Tony and I have? What do we want you to get? What is our acceptance criteria? As we promised in the registration, we would love to leave behind a 9-step approach that you can use when you encounter resistance. Make it your own. If you are stuck and you are curious to get a new idea, we would like to leave this model. It's a very flawed model, but hopefully it's a useful model. So we want to leave behind the 9-step approach. We also want to pique your curiosity about the coactive coaching framework. Many of us call ourselves Scrum coaches or Agile coaches, but one inauthenticity I noticed in myself was I never went to a formal coaching school. So I was just winging it. So our invitation is, should you call yourself a Scrum coach or an Agile coach, then maybe you will start dipping your toes into the model, into some formal coaching model, and perhaps add that to your toolkit. So that's one thing we want you to take away. This is part of our agenda or intent. We also want to share results from real world challenging situations that Tony and I have faced, and try to look at those situations through the lens of the model we are about to introduce to you. And finally, we want to leave behind some resources for learning. So if you're curious, you want to learn more, we would like to leave behind some free resources that you can use to continue your learning. So we want to sprinkle some seeds, some ideas through our webinar. And the hope is that one of these seeds is going to germinate in your context and is going to bear fruit that will help you live a purposeful life, that will help you find joy, fulfillment, and success in whatever context you might be. That's part of our agenda, part of our intent. And we hope you will walk away with some experiments. As we know, we are practitioners on the path of empiricism, and empiricism requires experimentation. So we are hoping that this webinar will give you ideas for some experiments you can try. Failure is guaranteed. All we want is we want to fail fast, learn fast, and adapt fast. So that's our agenda. That's our intent. And Tony, at any point along the way, please blurt out what the universe suggests you should blurt out. Let's dance in the moment. You won't hurt my feelings. Okay. All right. So what's the approach we are going to use? So here's the approach Tony and I have co-created. So we are going to do something which we haven't done before. We're going to do some role play. So Tony and I are going to be two actors in a play that might be unfolding in your life very often. Okay, so we are going to do a little bit of role playing where Tony is going to be a technical manager who's not all that impressed with Agile, and I'm going to be a Scrum coach or a Scrum Master. So you're going to see that challenge in that tension between someone who doesn't necessarily like Scrum, but unfortunately has to work with a pest Scrum Master. So we'll do a role play. Then we'll ask you, what did you notice in this role play? And then we will introduce our 9-step approach. And then we will start asking you, which of the 9 steps did you notice in the role play? We will get your feedback in terms of which of the 9 steps would you like us to explore in more depth for the rest of the webinar. We're going to leave behind some resources for you to continue your learning and some next steps. So that's an overview of the approach. We want to right-size your expectations. We probably have about 40 minutes if you take away the setup and the teardown, right, or the wrap-up. We have 40 minutes. There are probably, I don't know, somewhere between 500 to 1,000 people on this webinar. It's not possible for us in 40 minutes to address all the challenges you're facing. So just to right-size your expectations, we're going to leave you some ideas, like I said before, leave you some references. Now, here's something interesting. If this format is valuable for you, you would like more role plays, when the webinar gets over, there's going to be a post-webinar survey, and you have the opportunity to give feedback to Lindsay and Scrum.org and say, hey, I like this. I want to be part of role plays, or I would like you to do a role play for the situation I'm facing. We'll think about it. We'll try our best to accommodate that. And you can contact me for one-on-one coaching. You can be part of my coaching cohort. So just want to let you know, can't solve all your problems in this webinar, but we're not abandoning you. We will leave you a plethora of options, and then you can choose which option makes sense for you. Okay. For you to get the most from this conversation, we are requesting that you listen from a specific place and a specific context. think about a specific situation where you are encountering resistance to agile ways of working. As you think about that context, think about what's the outcome you are hoping to accomplish through the position or a course of action you are advocating for, and who is this person who seems to be resisting? And see what pops up for you as you listen to this webinar from that particular context. And I want to share something. This is something I read in a book called Introduction to Type and Change. I have this book over here. So I'm a Myers-Briggs certified practitioner. This is one of my favorite books. And this was a mind-blowing quote. People don't resist change. People change all the time. What people resist is having others impose change on them. Take a moment right now, pause. Look at your own life. Think of a situation where you are resisting change. When I did this exercise and realized that I'm a person who makes a living out of helping people navigate change, I was horrified that for a person who helps others navigate change, I abhor change in my personal life. And a lot of the changes in my personal life is imposed by my wife. So it did not take long for me to realize, oh crap, here are all the areas where I'm resisting change. And the benefit of that was it created humility and empathy. And I started noticing myself in the people who I was getting triggered by in the professional context. So our hope for you is the next time you get frustrated with someone who appears to be resisting change, that you will remember this quote and this moment in this webinar and look at yourself and say, hey, wait a minute, this is part of the human condition. I am me, they are, I am them, they are me. I have met the enemy and the enemy is me. So hopefully this will create some self-awareness. So what do we need from you in this conversation? Tony and I are promising we will be curious. We're going to be playful. I have a tendency to be very serious. I'm going to try not to be my serious self. We're going to be vulnerable. We don't have all the answers. We're just trying to help you with whatever we got. And maybe some things work, some things don't work. So we're going to be vulnerable. We're going to be very open to your ideas, to new thoughts, and we will be present. By being present, try not to be on your cell phone and so on, right? Be fully mentally, physically, emotionally present. This is what Tony and I are promising to you, and we are requesting that you give the same back so that you get value from this conversation. So now let's talk about the role play. So Tony and I are going to do some role playing, and so there are two characters. Tony is the engineering manager, got a bunch of developers reporting to him, and I am a Scrum Master. Unfortunately, my job title is somewhat questionable. Technical Scrum Coach. Some of you may have Agile Project Manager or God knows what kind of job titles there are in the industry, but we are trying to be as realistic as possible. So, Tony, what can you tell us about your persona or the role you're playing?
Thank you, Rafi. In this role I'm playing, in engineering, if I put on the head engineering, all we care is delivery. Actual things happened. So delivery is the king. And right now we are on the schedule that, hey, we're looking for some big milestone, big achievements 1 year down the road. 6 months into the project, and we are behind. We are 3 months behind. Now under the gun, people are breathing down my neck every other day about delivery, status report, figuring out what's going on. So I'm very swamped right now in this role. I need to report, a lot of report, evidence need to be provided. And during this time, some breaking news being told to me that, oh, there's this guy who's coming in to play Rafi, and I would like to invite you to talk about your role.
Okay. So now I have been hired as I'm a technical Scrum coach. I'm a Scrum Master, and someone in management who has more power than Tony has hired me, but doesn't necessarily mean that they have buy-in from Tony. So my job is to help with the adoption of Scrum And according to my job title, I'm also responsible for engineering, delivery, schedule, and execution. So that's the dynamic that you are going to watch in a role play. There are a couple of points I want to make very abundantly clear. This is not a coaching conversation. Coaching requires invitation, which means someone has to come to the coach and to say, hey, I really need your help. I want to grow. I'm stuck. Will you please be my coach? This is not a coaching conversation. For Tony, the engineering manager, I'm nothing more than an irritant, than a pest. Okay, so this is not a coaching conversation. However, it is possible to integrate elements from a coaching model into a regular conversation. But just be aware, this is not a coaching conversation. Coaching requires invitation and permission. You can't just go and randomly start coaching someone who didn't ask you to be their coach. That is unethical. It is also ineffective. So just want to clarify that. There's a second thing. Tony and I have not rehearsed this. We don't want to give you a beautiful arc of a conversation which lands very nicely. Why? Because we want to deliver value to you. So we have no clue how this is going to go. Our goal is that we be as realistic as possible. And then we look at that conversation, good, bad, or ugly, through the lens of our model. And then you walk away with some insights you can use in the real world. Okay. So we are about to go into the coaching conversation. Tony, anything else you want to add before I move on?
When we starting the scene, Rafi, I will maybe just align quickly on the scene is that this is our kickoff meeting between two roles.
Yeah. And
we're having this first time engagement and we're just kind of having a conversation, but halfway through that enjoyment, as for me, I have to run. And that's where you're trying to stop me. You try to stop me and say something about points that you don't feel comfortable with. And I think that's what the starting of the scene.
Okay, very good. All right. So Tony and I are going to have a conversation. I'm almost like a beggar, like, Tony, please give me, I need to talk to you. And Tony's like, I don't have time. So here's what we are going to do. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I will ask Lindsay to give me a 7-minute warning. So this will be like a 10-minute conversation. So the 7-minute marker, Lindsay will let me know, and then I'll try to end the conversation. Then we'll resume the share and we'll move on. Okay. So I'm going to stop my share. Just as a backup, I'm going to start my own timer as well. All right. Okay. And here we go. Hey, Tony, can I just talk to you for a little bit? There's a concern I have about something you said about velocity. So can we please talk for a few minutes?
I need to run for next meeting in 10 minutes. So
okay.
Can you tell me what's on your mind?
I'll be quick. So Tony, you've been I heard about I have heard a lot about velocity and wanting to measure like performance and productivity, accountability, even like individual team member velocity. So that's making me uncomfortable. So I just wanted to understand your perspective.
Well, Rafi, so we're doing delivery, and in here we actually measure how much we can deliver on the velocity, right? We need to know the team's rate. Well, why don't you tell me what's the standard achievement rate, completion rate on the industry?
Yeah, so before we do that, delivery, I heard you mention, it sounds like delivery is important for you. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. We are the people who make those things happen.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, without engineering managers, I mean, you play a very important role. So what does delivery mean? What is delivery? Yeah.
I'm not sure why you're asking. So, we have these work items that we have to accomplish every sprint, right? Yeah, so everybody, we actually have this work assigned and we need to finish them. And if we don't finish them, we are not delivering.
Yeah, I get that. What becomes possible when we deliver?
So your job when you come into a team, let me make this clear. You will be running this our Scrum process, right? You will be make sure the delivery is on schedule.
Yeah.
When you join with us, we need to make sure that's delivered on this agreed timeline. we have milestones to hit.
Yeah. Who are we delivering for?
So if you want to know more about business, we have this product group you can talk to, and there's target clients. You should really prepare yourself for the ramp up section to go through our wiki to know who are our users of the product. You can read from there.
Got it. Very cool. And also, Tony, I want to deliver for you. You're a very important stakeholder. So I think we have a shared agenda. We want to deliver value to our customers, to our users. So I noticed that you nodded. How does that land? Does that resonate with you?
I like the word of we have a shared agenda. I'm just not sure at this stage, are you familiar with our business? Are you familiar with our operation? It's why you say seems to be very high level. You're talking about, yes, we have customers, agreed.
Yeah. So I promise you that I will go and learn more about our business and operations. So I have a request for you. What might be a good way for us to hold each other accountable so that we both partner and make sure that we improve our team's delivery?
I think what we want first is in our team, we want people come join, actually get their hands dirty and do the work, not just the fluffy talk. So I understand you've been, joining our team, you will run some processes, Agile, Scrum, delivery, scheduling. It will be very crucial that you actually know how we work, follow our process, and let's make sure the delivery, the team completes. We actually can measure the team's performance as well as individuals that we already have. Get your hands dirty, join us and do the work. That'll be the starting point.
Okay, very cool. So what I heard was no fluffy talk, understand the business, get your hands dirty, and improve the performance. How am I doing so far?
Very high level, but it's a good start. If you start from there, maybe we can dive in deeper in the next stage.
Very good. What can I depend on from you to help us succeed?
It is in our company culture that you will need to dig around and find information and find what you need. So what I can offer you is weekly, we can book 30 minutes and just jump on the call as needed. So message me, ping me if you have questions. We can meet when there's a need.
Got it. And Tony, it's possible that I know you're running late, but I'll be as brief as I can. So Tony, it's possible that I think we have a shared goal, but it's possible sometimes the conversation might be difficult. How would you like us to handle difficult conversations?
I like you to keep it straight to the point. My communication style just get to it, just talk straight, and give it to me, and I'll hear you, and I'll give you the straight feedback as well.
Perfect. All right. Now, Tony, as we start ending our conversation, how will we know that the delivery is improving?
Well, let's make sure the team actually says what they can get done and get it done in time, and we'll measure the velocity. We already generated velocity to make sure that we know the delivery, how many points on average per every sprint. We know about how true is their word, so we do percentage evaluation, making sure that percentage increases over time. They say what can get done, they get it done.
Got it. And then Tony, after speaking to business, if I come up with other ways to improve our performance, may I have your permission to share them with you?
My advice to you again is that respect organization, starting from make sure you talk to all organization heads.
Okay.
We will both have the functional, engineering, operation, and talking to one of the heads does not mean we'll all have follow the same thing.
Got it. So I'll be direct. You asked me to be direct. So does that mean that I have your permission to make suggestions? So yes, I will do what you said. And if I have suggestions, may I offer them to you?
Please reach out to me before you start executing anything, because the SR team is on a very, very, very tight delivery schedule right now. Yeah. I don't really want the team to get these interruptions on new things, the new processes, while they actually focus on actually building.
Perfect. Okay. And then I apologize if you said this, but how shall we check in to make sure that performance is improving?
Well,
3-minute warning.
we
Thank you.
we measure everyone's delivery completion the performance points. So as we see the points, we're not improving.
Got it. And for example, like, should we do like a monthly meeting? Can you join the sprint review? Could we use that as an opportunity?
I think there's a misunderstanding. We do our demo every of these sprint periods, and I'm part of the team there, being watching how it happens, taking place during the presentation to the management. And one of your job is also joining our team, is actually writing those reports. So maybe that's a big alignment to make sure that
Got it.
you and I will be there and writing reports.
Okay. And then as we come to the end of our conversation, so Tony, we will have, we'll be part of those demos, and then we will look at the metrics, and then I'll be direct with you. I promise, no fluffy talk. I'll be educated on the business. I'm going to get my hands dirty, going to help the team. And also when I need your support, especially if it's a difficult conversation, I'm going to be direct and I'm going to make a request to you. You can accept, decline, or counter offer. All right. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, man. Okay. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you making the time. I know you're busy. You got to run, and so do I.
Yep.
So I'll be in touch after I finish the conversation with the business. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Okay, then. Oof. Role play over. I am going to go back to sharing my screen. Let me go back. I think here we go. So we'll ask the first of a series of questions. And this question is directed to the audience. Please use the Q&A panel to share your responses. What did you notice in this conversation?
I see active listening.
Active listening. Very good. Thank you, Lindsay. What else?
Tension.
Tension. Yeah.
Powerful questions. Very real.
Lot of confirming what is being heard.
Repeating what he said. Paraphrasing. Confusion. Strong questions. Probing questions. Empathy.
Very cool. I'm reading so if you see me looking left, that's my other monitor. So yeah, Lindsay, please, when you're ready, please call out anything else that resonates.
Establishing common ground. I found he was quite defensive. Command and control. Some responses were vague. Designed alliance. Good agreement on how to handle difficult conversations. De-escalations. Asking first about the other point of view. Tony rejects proposals and needs to approve them before implementing them. Uncomfortable. Seeing time more made rushed conversation. Pressure on Tony.
Very interesting. And some anonymous attendee is nominating Tony and me for Golden Globes. So yes, as soon as the actor-director strike, writer strike is over, Golden Globes, I hope you won't get in trouble with the Actors Guild because we are breaking the picket line. All right. Okay. All right. So you noticed some things. Now, I'm going to introduce the 9-step framework and then ask you which of these 9 steps did you notice? So the heart of this framework or this approach is we have to operate from a place of love and caring for our customers and users. This is, or it should be, the unifying goal that aligns all of us. We are all passionate people, but we are working and getting a paycheck for one and only one reason: delivering sustainable, measurable value to our customers and users. And while we may have disagreements, hopefully the disagreements are not about serving these people, but rather on what is the best way to serve these people, and anchoring our conversations in terms of, or framing our conversations in terms of the people we all exist to serve, and hopefully we are all aligned to serve, may help us avoid some of the interpersonal conflicts that can be unhelpful. So ground the conversation, elevate the conversation in terms of customers and users. Now, these people who we love, who we care about, who we are trying to serve, are facing a problem, a complex problem in an uncontrollable and an unpredictable world. And most of the time, we are offering a solution or some kind of a product. It could be a service. It doesn't have to be a software product, but it's some kind of a solution or a service that will help these people we care about solve the problem they are facing. And if we are using empiricism, then we want to use empirical evidence from the market to give us feedback on whether or not we are helping these people we care about solve the problems that they care about. This has got to be at the heart and the center of the relationship and the model that we are introducing. So the first step is to understand the intent. What is the intent of the person who appears to be resisting, or the other person or people? And what is our intent? To be very clear and transparent about our agenda or our intents. Second step, let's try to get clarity about the approach that we have agreed to follow to achieve our agenda or to realize our intent. Step 2. Step 3, let's set up some kind of an accountability mechanism. How might we hold each other accountable that we are making progress towards this intent? And let's design an alliance or a working agreement. Who are we going to be as we travel on this path and try to achieve the intent so that we can serve customers and users? Step 4, chances are we have some assumptions about what needs to happen to achieve our intent. So how are we going to articulate these assumptions? And how are we going to select which assumptions are we going to test out or validate? And then how are we going to execute? What action are we going to take to achieve our intent? How are you going to pause and reflect? What worked? What didn't work? How are we going to learn? And finally, how will we course correct? Very simple 9-step model based on empiricism and based on a coaching model called coactive coaching. I noticed one of the questions in the chat was, what is coactive coaching? It's just a structured approach for coaching. So now I'm going to ask you a question. We are probably going to pull up a poll. It was a very brief overview through these 9 steps. What we would like you to do is to look at the role play through the lens of this 9-step approach and to share which of these 9 steps did you notice as part of the role play, and you can choose more than one. So the poll is up. So please participate in the poll. While participants are voting, Tony, what questions could you think of as you look at this 9-step approach, and what is it that you would like the audience to be aware of?
Something in my head, the most as being the acting in the role and also being experiencing in life, being both sides. The resistance in management. What's from your experience, Ravi? What are the most common pattern or trap that we should watch out for when working with management?
Yeah, for me, the biggest pattern is I go into my fight or flight response. Even though we're doing role play, I experienced in my stomach, I felt scared. And if I lean into the superpower of curiosity, so this is a hat, Curious George, and I keep this hat here to remind myself how powerful it is. I'm going to do something very weird intentionally. For me, the biggest pattern is how being aware that when I come across someone who I feel is resisting, I go into my fight and flight response. I start feeling psychologically unsafe. And the best way to disarm my lack of psychological safety is through curiosity. So if I can realize I'm feeling unsafe, and then I can make myself feel safe, and then I can switch gears into curiosity. It helps me see the other person as a human being who might be just as scared as I am, or more scared. This human being has dreams and hopes and aspirations. And then I start shifting the way I look at this person, not as a threat to my safety, but rather as a person who's worthy of love and respect, and then try to be curious. And when I'm curious and I'm coming from a place of love and respect, my body language changes, my tone of voice changes, and somehow they can sense it. And when I shift, they shift. So those are my thoughts. What do you think, Tony? You've been in the real world dealing with these personalities. What would you offer?
I have to say, great response, Ravi. I agree. I cannot agree with you more, because the natural instinct a lot of people, including myself, is that fight or flight. Do I fight this argument as I have to convince that person, or do I need to fight, just run away? And it seems this is it's a 1 or 0, right? Only 2 options. But what you said was actually the other end is also a human being, may have concerns and worries, and your curiosity actually invite the conversation. You're not trying to change the other person. You try to be with the person and actually see if we can watch the challenge as our shared goal. So I really echo with you on that.
And as I was listening to you about the fight and flight, it reminded me. So I got certified in a conflict resolution approach. There's a conflict resolution assessment called the Thomas Kilmann Conflict Mode Assessment, TKI. I think it's one of the most popular conflict resolution assessments. And there are 5 ways to respond to a conflict. 3 of those are related to the fight or flight. So fighting is competing. I want it my way. You're not going to use velocity. Flight is avoiding it. Okay, I don't want to talk to Tony, the engineering manager. There's a 3rd one called freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. So that is like just accommodating. I just lock up. I don't know what to do. So we do whatever Tony says. Then there's compromise, where Tony's pissed off, I'm pissed off. Maybe we use velocity, but we don't use individual, or we use velocity plus something else. And then there's collaborating, where we expand the size of the pie. So I love the fact that you brought fight, flight. And very often, when I did the TKI assessment, I realized I just had fight, flight, or freeze, and I was overusing them. But using conflict resolution assessments or approaches can expand the toolkit. Okay, so Lindsay, the
results are in.
Out. What are you noticing, Lindsay? What would you like us to share?
So it looks like accountability, approach, and looks like 2 are tied. Action and alliance are tied, but this is which of the steps did the audience notice in the role play? So that's what people noticed. And we do have another poll, and I just want to give a friendly reminder that we only have about 20 minutes left. So
all right, going to speed it up.
Be mindful of that.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so it looks like the close tie is people felt they noticed accountability and the approach. All right, cool. All right. Tony, what did it feel like to be you as in the role play?
A quick summary is that I think when we kick off the meeting, I was in a role, I actually feel about this impatient of someone who doesn't know about business, who doesn't know about what I was so busy with, doesn't understand I'm under the gun with the team, and start talking about high level questions. I feel like this very disengaged conversation. So one of the feeling I have was I want to cut off a conversation short. Go read, go figure out, come back when you got it. That's the initial feeling. And what I found was very well done was, while with that, there was no resistance when in this conversation from this newly hired staff. He just repeats what I said. My words, like he heard me, he will follow up. That actually makes me feel like, while not feeling pleasant, I can agree on this. You heard me and we'll meet next time. And I feel like that's the feeling that there's continuation until next time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. And I'll tell you my experience. I was actively using 5 values. So just like in Scrum, there are the 5 values, right? Courage, focus, openness, respect, commitment. In the coactive coaching, there are similar values. They call it context. Curiosity, listening, intuition, deepen forward, and self-management. But I was using self-management because there were so many times I got triggered because you said fluffy talk. I felt that I was being patronized. Go talk to business. Go get your hands dirty. Do real work. So what's happening is one part of me, part of my CPU is listening to Tony, but the other part is almost like a wounded child. Like, I just got disrespected. Are you trying to tell me that I don't do real work? Are you trying to imply I don't get my hands dirty? But what I had to do was I had to shake it off. I had to self-manage because I couldn't let that wounded child take over the conversation, because then it's going to be, the protector is going to come in, and the protector part of me is going to go and fight the bully, which is Tony. So we don't want that. So whenever that part of me got hurt, I had to take the wise part of me, say, Ravi, it's fine. It's fine. You are safe. Let's just find out what he's all about. So I was able to self-manage the wounded part of me, keep my warrior or protector out of the conversation. And then it allowed me to bring the curious part of me. So anyway, that's one thing even though it's a role play, I'm feeling the tension right now because I felt deeply disrespected. But I knew that if I allowed that part of me to take over, I cannot serve my team, I cannot serve my company, I cannot serve Tony. So I just wanted to share my experience, what it felt like to be Ravi. And I was very intentional about self-management. So anyway, so those are my thoughts. We want to eat our own dog food or drink our own dog champagne, and we want to rank order the backlog. So we may just have about 8 more minutes. We would love to find out from you, given the specific context that brought you to this webinar, which one step, if there was only one step that Tony and I spent more time exploring in the next 8 minutes, what step would give you maximum bang for your buck or your time? So Lindsay and Lindsay's pulled up the poll. Pick the one step that will give you most value in the next 8 minutes.
Someone had asked Ravi before you started the role play what was meant by technical Scrum Master. They were a little confused.
Tony, I will let you talk about
multiple people
Right.
asked about that.
Lindsay, thank you for bringing up this question. That's a great question, because I think if we go on LinkedIn today, go search for the keyword Scrum, these are actual job titles on the market. And this means whenever you go into organization, the other side, the employer side, expectation of this newly hired are not just Scrum, are not just Agile. It probably relates to project management, relates to technical work. And the reason we play with this title is that what is the expectation when we enter organization? How do we engage the other side? How can work together instead of going in, say, oh, I'm here to talk about Scrum, everything else, not. So that's where we use this title. Ravi, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to share something. The industry has a very flawed and a limited understanding of what is Scrum. People want project management, but it is uncool to be perceived as a company that is doing waterfall command and control project management. So to avoid an embarrassment, they might put a job description which has something to do with Scrum or Agile. It is incumbent upon you to go in with your eyes open. Now, maybe you're desperate for a job, which is completely cool. I've been there, you need benefits. And it's okay if you believe in Scrum, but out of desperation, you have to take a job which has this mangled job title. But that's why we chose the job title, because for many of us, that is a reality. We believe in Scrum, but there are not too many jobs where you can practice professional Scrum, and you have these weird job titles that you have to try and operate in. So that's why we chose this. Okay. So the poll is closed. Lindsay, what do people want us to spend time on?
So it seems like number one is approach, and following by it by a hair is alliance. And then following that would be accountability.
Okay. So we just have maybe 5 minutes. So Lindsay, would you be willing to pick any question related to approach, or just guide Tony and I so we deliver value? What do people want to find out about specifically about approach? So maybe Lindsay, while you are scanning through the questions, maybe Tony and I can get the ball rolling. So when I created this model, my intent for the approach was to get alignment on how are we going to work together to achieve our shared intent, the agenda. The company might have, for example, the company may have made a decision, thou shalt use Scrum. The technical project manager and the company may have also made a decision that you are going to use velocity as a metric. So my intent with step 2 was to get alignment despite our differences. Where is the common ground in terms of approach? Tony, what would you recommend to our practitioners who might try to adopt this or implement this model in terms of approach? What should they watch out for?
Something I bubble up for me is this framework, 9-step framework, is really powerful on agenda, explicit talk about the intent, why you say what you say, not just throw out the words, and then reach to approach, how we will proceed. And when we talk about approach, the bubble up is that approach is not fixed. It's at this moment of time, in our role play, Rafi got me to agree, got engineering manager to agree, okay, this is what the technical Scrum coach will do until next time. This is the approach you agree right now. Next time we meet, there's again the agenda, the approach, continue, inspect, and adapt this whole 9-step framework. It's not set in day one and not fixed. I think with every time engagement, it's a new start.
Yeah, I felt that Tony, also I spoke about the sprint review. So I was trying to say, how will we know this is working? And he was saying, well, the metrics, right? And then I was trying to say, okay, when should we review? And I made a counter offer. Would you be willing to attend the review? And he said, yeah, there's something you should know. There's a demo. That was not a hill worth dying on. So I did not bring, so one of the comments was Scrum Guide. I don't think I used a lot of Scrum jargon by design because people don't want me to be a Scrum police. So I was trying to co-create the approach. Hey, could we meet? Could we reflect on this in the sprint review? Or you call it demo, I call it sprint review, tomato. For now, that's not a battle I want to fight. And I think there might have been a conversation where maybe we check in. There was also a conversation, maybe it's part of Alliance where I said, okay, so here's what I promise. And now what can I depend on you for? Lindsay?
So a question that came in related to this. So how does your approach change if Tony didn't feel like the Scrum Master role provided any value? In your scenario, he seemed to respect or understand the potential value that the role brought.
Yeah, my approach is I would not want to get into a theoretical debate on whether the Scrum Master position is valuable or not. If I understand what does Tony value, and if I look at my personal and professional values, and if I can find in my heart and in my mind that what he values is aligned with customers and users, or if I can find some common ground, forget about whether he cares Scrum Master role is valuable or not. Can I help him? Can I partner with him in the interest of our customers and users and my Scrum team? So that's what I would, that's how I would reframe. I would not even go down that rabbit hole of how dare he not value my role. Tony, what would you like to add?
Fully agree with you, Rafi. I think bubble ups to me, the thought is don't try to fight and argue Agile or Scrum, tomato. That name doesn't matter at all. It's underneath focus on how do we increase the transparency in the current work and towards a shared goal, found a common ground. it's fundamentally collaboratively, coactively found that common ground and move forward. Now, in order to know what's Agile and Scrum, especially professional Scrum, I recommend Scrum.org, where we go into the core of it. When communicating with clients, meet them where they are, meeting the team where they are. Do not come in with big terminologies. Tomato, you're not pronouncing it right, or is it tomato? That's not the key. The focus is how to work forward together. That's I definitely agree with your fee.
Yeah. So we are approaching the end of our time together for this conversation. There'll be more, but I want to share two things as we go on to references. The first is I attended the professional Scrum Master class with Ken Schwaber in Boston. Maybe that was like, I don't know, 11 years ago. And throughout the class, Ken kept reminding us the intent of Scrum was increase value, decrease waste, manage risk. So what I would invite all of you to consider is, whoever is the person who appears to be resisting, try and find out, can you and that person align behind a shared goal of increasing value, decreasing waste, managing risk? And then see, irrespective of what they feel about the Scrum Master role or the validity of Scrum, can you partner and find at least one baby step to either increase value, decrease waste, or manage risk? So that's something that I would like to offer to you. From the ROI Institute, what I learned, something similar. Most businesses want to make money, save money, reduce risk. Very similar to Ken's ideas. So chances are you will be able to create a coalition or a partnership with whoever appears to be resisting in a way that is not misaligned with the intent of Scrum. Okay. All right, we are running out of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to land this plane and we are going to keep our promise to you. References. If the coactive model intrigued you, go to the Coactive Training Institute. I think it's coactive.com. Just Google it and start dipping your toes. It doesn't matter if this doesn't resonate. My request is a Scrum Master. Consider the idea that a Scrum Master is a Scrum coach. Most of us are winging it, and that's why we get perhaps mixed results. So my invitation is, do what Tony and I have done. Go and get trained and certified on a coaching model. Okay. Also, to avoid landing up in a job which has some Scrum in the jargon or job description, but has nothing to do with professional Scrum, to avoid getting blindsided or trapped, please watch this video. This will help you articulate or get transparency, visibility into your own expectations for a job, and it will help you get visibility into the expectations of the hiring manager and the stakeholders who you will be expected to coach. And then you can make an informed decision. Hey, I desperately need money. I need benefits. This is a project management job masquerading as a pseudo Scrum Master scam. That's okay. I need the money. I'm going to do whatever the heck they want me to do. But it will hopefully avoid a situation where there's a bait and switch, or you believe what you want to believe and then you find yourself miserable. So watch this webinar, the video. This was a webinar I did with Lindsay. Concrete actions you can take to reclaim your power as a Scrum Master. If you are feeling powerless, hopeless, like a helpless victim, please watch this webinar, go through the slides. Also, elevate your understanding of Scrum from a bunch of meetings and ceremonies or rituals to a scientific approach for risk management. So if you're interested in elevating your understanding of Scrum, this is a blog. You will have these clickable links in the slides when Lindsay publishes them. It's a fill in the blanks cheat sheet. So go fill out this cheat sheet and elevate your understanding. Where do we go from here? Next steps. If you found this demo or the role play Tony and I did valuable, and you have a specific role play you would like either to participate in or Tony and I or other members of the Scrum.org community to do for you, when you exit the webinar, you'll have a pop-up survey. Give a feedback, give requests to Lindsay. We'll do the best to accommodate your request. If you want, you can request one-on-one coaching with me. I'm also launching a coaching cohort to help Scrum Masters, strengthen their coaching muscles. If you want, contact me. Contact information will be on the slides, and then I can add you to the list of applicants for my next coaching cohort. I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay. Lindsay, where else can Scrum.org support our audience in their learning journey?
Yes, so please stay connected to us through our social media channels. We run the Scrum Pulse webcast 2 to 3 times a month. And we also have an Ask a PST session where you can come and ask questions to a professional Scrum trainer about anything related to Scrum. So please feel free to check those out. Those are all free opportunities. And we also have our blog. So please check out our blog. There are a lot of great articles on there to help you with your learning. You can filter through topics and things like that in our resource center as well. And with that, we do have 5 minutes left. So there is, and we also have our learning paths as well. There's one question that I would really like to ask that came in from the audience related to Alliance that I think is something that probably comes up often. So Laurent had asked, how do you create an alliance when 2 teams are merging into one? For example, one mature Agile team, and then another team that is used to regular traditional project management. Any tips to leave the audience with on merging those 2 worlds?
Yeah. I would say, so I think I have a blog on this called How to Create a Designed Alliance. So I have recommended 9 questions that you can consider to design an alliance. And basically the questions are, it starts with, what do you want? How do you know you're getting what you want? Who do you want it for? How would you like to handle difficult situations? How would you like to hold each other accountable? So my advice is, ask a bunch of powerful questions. And as Ken Schwaber often reminds us, ask the team so that we don't try to solve a problem that we have no business solving, and we don't inhibit self-management. Tony, what would you recommend?
I love how Rafi worded. Again, +1 on that is, it's not about Scrum or traditional way. It's about step back on what is the purpose of this team. What is the team accountable for? What are we measuring? And I think if we step back, go from a high angle to look down on what the teams are accountable for, how do we measure the delivery, the value, it will be naturally forming what they can do, what they need to continue inspect, how regularly and adapt. And then it's not an argument about Scrum or not Scrum anymore. It's about how can we better work together? What can we agree on at this moment right now?
Yeah. Two questions. I guess some questions I would like people to keep in mind is, what do we want? How will we know we have it? And who will we be? So usually people care about 2 things. I want my values to be honored and respected, and I want to deliver value to my customers and stakeholders. So both value and values must be honored. And the best way to find out what is the value people are pursuing and what values do they want to be honored is to do what Ken Schwaber said. Ask the team.
Well said. Well said.
Lindsay, where do we go from here?
So what's the best way for the audience to stay connected with you both?
Connect with us on LinkedIn. When you, and Tony, correct me if I misspeak on your behalf. When you send a LinkedIn request, please put a mention. Hey, I saw you on the Scrum Pulse webinar. I would say that's a good way. And then you have the contact information on the slides. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much, Ravi and Tony. This was a lot of fun. I hope the audience had fun too. It seems like you did, based on the comments that came in through the chat here. And we hope that this did play a role in your continuing learning, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you. Have fun. Scrum on.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.